Be me. 19. College sophomore studying gender studies and psychology. Raised by single mum until she married David when I was 12. Always had complicated relationship with him. Not my real dad. Never fully accepted him as family member. Grew up believing men had everything easy. Mum constantly talked about struggles women face. Wage gap, glass ceiling, street harassment, domestic violence. Men just coast through life, getting handed opportunities without effort. David seemed to prove this theory. Good job as accountant, owned house, had steady income. Appeared to have typical easy male life, while mum worked twice as hard for recognition. Never really tried to understand him as person, just saw him as another privileged man who happened to marry my mum. Tuesday evening, freshman year winter break, home from college for holidays. David seems different than usual. More quiet, withdrawn, spending hours alone in basement office. Mum mentions he's been stressed about work lately. New management, increased demands, longer hours. Say it's probably temporary adjustment period. Feel annoyed that he's bringing negative energy to family time. Think he should handle stress better like women do. Wednesday morning, overhear David on phone with his brother. Conversation is tense, emotional. Something about their father's medical bills and family financial responsibilities. Learn David has been sending money to help with his dad's cancer treatment, while also supporting his unemployed brother's family. Never knew about these obligations. Feel slight shift in perspective, but still think men should handle family pressure without it affecting everyone else. Thursday afternoon, David loses his job. Company downsizing due to economic changes. 15 years with same firm. Eliminated overnight with minimal severance package. Watch him tell mum the news. He's trying to stay composed, but can see devastation in his eyes. This isn't just job loss. This is identity crisis for someone who defined himself as provider. Mom is supportive, but I can see her worry about finances, mortgage, my college tuition. Friday, David starts job hunting immediately, spends entire day applying online, making phone calls, networking with former colleagues. Treats job search like full-time position itself. Notice he doesn't complain or ask for sympathy. Just quietly works to solve problem while carrying weight of family's financial security on his shoulders. Weekend, 3 weeks into unemployment. David's demeanor changing noticeably. Less eye contact, shorter conversations, spending more time isolated in basement. Mom explains that unemployment affects men differently than women. Society expects men to be providers. Losing job means losing fundamental role and purpose. Start understanding that David's identity was built around supporting our family. Without job, he feels worthless despite all his other qualities. Monday, David gets interview for position that pays 30% less than previous job. Takes it immediately despite being overqualified. Any income better than none. Watch him. Try to stay positive about significant pay cut. Knows family needs his contribution even if it's reduced. Pride takes back seat to responsibility. Feel growing respect for his dedication to our family's well-being. Tuesday, new job is miserable fit. David comes home exhausted and demoralized. Younger boss treats him condescendingly. Co-workers exclude him from social activities. Age discrimination is real but legally difficult to prove. David endures daily humiliation because family depends on his income. Begins seeing strength required to swallow pride and endure poor treatment for sake of others. Wednesday, David's father dies after long cancer battle. Funeral expenses and final medical bills create additional financial strain. Watch David handle all arrangements while grieving privately. Takes time off work, but doesn't burden family with emotional processing. Carries grief internally. Notice he doesn't receive same emotional support that women typically get during loss. Expected to be strong pillar while dealing with own pain. Thursday, David's depression becoming obvious. Sleeping poorly, eating little, avoiding social interaction. but still goes to work every day and fulfills family obligations. Mom suggests therapy, but David resists. Says men don't do therapy and insurance won't cover much anyway. Cultural stigma around male mental health prevents him from seeking help. Feel frustrated that toxic masculinity keeps him from getting support he clearly needs. Friday, semester starts again. Return to college, but can't stop thinking about David's deteriorating mental state. In gender studies classes, discuss male privilege and patriarchal advantages. Feel increasingly uncomfortable with oversimplified narratives about men's easy lives. David's experience doesn't match academic theories about male advantages. He's struggling deeply while maintaining facade of strength. Saturday, call home to check on family. Mum says David barely speaks anymore. Goes to work, comes home, sits in basement watching television until late. She's worried, but doesn't know how to help. David won't discuss feelings or accept assistance. Masculine conditioning makes vulnerability impossible for him. Monday, research, male depression and suicide statistics for psychology paper. Data is shocking and rarely discussed. Male suicide rates are 4 times higher than female rates. Men less likely to seek mental health treatment. Social isolation increases dramatically after job loss or divorce. Traditional male roles create psychological pressure that modern society doesn't acknowledge or address. Tuesday, call David directly instead of just talking to mum. Conversation is awkward but necessary. Ask how he's doing. Standard response is fine, just tired. Try to dig deeper about his emotional state. He opens up slightly about feeling useless and burdensome to family, sees himself as failure for not providing better financial security. Wednesday, David mentions that most of his male friends disappeared after he lost his job. Men don't maintain emotional support networks like women do, says male friendships are activity-based. Without disposable income for social activities, friendships fade, left isolated during most difficult period. Understanding growing about how differently men and women experience social support during crises. Thursday, David's depression deepening despite medication prescribed by family doctor. Antidepressants help minimally without therapy or lifestyle changes. He continues working at job he hates, supporting family. He feels he's disappointing, carrying emotional burden he can't share. Watching strongman slowly dissolve under pressure that society expects him to handle silently. Friday, spring break visit home. David's condition deteriorated significantly. Lost weight, grey complexion, barely participates in family conversations. Mum privately tells me she's scared. David mentioned feeling like family would be better off without him. Classic warning signs of suicidal ideation. Feel panic about losing him, just as I'm beginning to understand and appreciate his sacrifices. Weekend, try engaging David in activities he used to enjoy. Suggest watching sports together, working on house projects, going for drives. He participates half-heartedly, but I can see he appreciates effort. Small moments of connection feel precious given his mental state. Start realizing how much he means to our family despite my previous indifference. Monday, David has panic attack at work. Hospitalized briefly for cardiac evaluation, but tests show anxiety-related symptoms. Forced to take medical leave, which increases his depression about being burden on family. Catch-22 situation where getting help makes him feel worse about himself. Insurance. Coverage for mental health is minimal. Family can't afford extensive therapy or treatment programs. Tuesday, research male-specific depression symptoms and treatment options. Learn that men often express depression through anger, irritability, and withdrawal, rather than traditional sadness. David's behavior matches male depression patterns perfectly, but wasn't recognized early because symptoms differ from female presentations. Mental. Health system designed around female depression experiences often misses male suffering. Wednesday, family meeting about David's mental health crisis. Mom and I agree to be more direct about getting him professional help. David initially resists, but eventually agrees to therapy when framed as helping family function better rather than fixing his personal problems. Male psychology often requires external motivation when internal motivation is depleted by depression. Thursday, David starts therapy with counselor who specializes in male mental health issues. Sessions focus on redefining masculine identity beyond provider role. Slow progress, but therapist explains that men typically take longer to open up emotionally due to lifetime conditioning against vulnerability. Friday, therapist recommends support group for unemployed men over 40. David extremely reluctant, but agrees to try one meeting. Returns with slight improvement in mood. Says hearing other men's similar struggles made him feel less alone and abnormal. Male peer support can be powerful when it happens, but requires overcoming cultural barriers to emotional sharing. Weekend, David tells me about his childhood and family expectations, raised to believe men must be strong, successful providers without emotional needs. Never learned healthy ways to process failure, disappointment, or grief. Emotional expression was discouraged as weakness throughout development. Understanding. Growing about how traditional masculinity creates psychological vulnerabilities rather than strengths. Monday, David finds new job with better pay and respectful work environment. His mood improves significantly with restoration of provider role and professional dignity. But underlying depression remains because core issues around masculine identity and emotional expression haven't been fully addressed. Job success provides temporary relief but doesn't solve deeper psychological patterns. Tuesday semester end. Write final paper on male mental health crisis for gender studies course. Professor is resistant to topic, suggests focusing on women's mental health instead. Says male problems are less pressing given historical advantages. Feel frustrated by academic reluctance to examine male suffering with same depth applied to female issues. Wednesday, defend paper. Arguing that understanding male mental health is crucial for gender equality. Explain that David's experience taught me that privilege doesn't protect against psychological suffering. Social expectations can create mental health burdens regardless of other advantages. Mixed reception from classmates. Some appreciate new perspective while others resist acknowledging male vulnerability. Thursday, David's therapy continues with gradual improvement, learning to express emotions appropriately and redefine masculinity beyond traditional provider role. Support group becomes an important source of connection with other men facing similar challenges. Male friendship deepening beyond surface level activities. Family relationships improving as David becomes more emotionally available and less internally focused. Friday, summer break. David and I have honest conversation about our relationship and his mental health journey. Apologize for years of dismissing him as privileged man without understanding his internal struggles and family pressures. He forgives easily and explains that men are conditioned not to expect emotional understanding, surprised by my interest in his experiences. Weekend, reflect on how David's depression changed my understanding of gender dynamics and male experience. Realize that social advantages don't prevent psychological suffering. Men face unique mental health challenges due to cultural expectations around strength and emotional suppression. Traditional masculinity creates vulnerabilities that feminist theory often overlooks in focus on male privilege. Monday, junior year begins. Changed major to add counseling psychology alongside gender studies. Want to work with male mental health issues professionally. Feel called to help other men like David who suffer silently due to cultural conditioning against emotional expression and help seeking. Academic feminism often ignores male psychological needs, but real equality requires addressing everyone's mental health challenges. Tuesday, Research career paths in male-focused mental health counseling. Field is underserved due to combination of male reluctance to seek help and female-dominated therapy profession. Men often respond better to male therapists who understand masculine psychology and cultural pressures firsthand. Wednesday, David celebrates 1 year at new job and 6 months of consistent therapy. His depression is managed, but requires ongoing attention. Family relationships are stronger than ever. He's more emotionally present while maintaining his natural tendency toward quiet strength. Learning that mental health recovery is an ongoing process rather than destination. Thursday, share David's story in gender studies seminar about male mental health. Class discussion reveals that many students have similar experiences with fathers, brothers, boyfriends struggling silently. Male depression affects entire families, but rarely gets discussed openly due to cultural stigma around masculine vulnerability. Friday, 2 years after David's mental health crisis. He's stable, employed, and emotionally healthy, but experienced permanently changed family's understanding of gender and mental health. Mom now advocates for male mental health awareness in her professional work. I'm training to become counselor, specializing in men's issues. David's near breakdown taught us that privilege doesn't prevent suffering and that everyone deserves emotional support regardless of gender. Weekend, final reflection on how watching David's depression changed my perspective on male experience. Started believing men had easy lives due to social advantages. Learned that cultural expectations create psychological burdens that can be devastating. Male privilege exists in some contexts, but doesn't protect against mental health struggles. Traditional masculinity often makes male suffering worse by preventing help-seeking. David's story taught me that true gender equality requires acknowledging everyone's vulnerabilities rather than ranking who suffers most. Men need emotional support and mental health resources just as much as women do. Denying this doesn't advance feminism, it just creates more suffering. Maybe understanding male struggles makes me better feminist because it means caring about everyone's well-being rather than treating gender as zero-sum competition. David survived his depression and taught our family that strength includes vulnerability and that everyone needs support sometimes. That lesson is worth more than any academic theory about privilege or oppression. Sometimes the most important education happens at home.